And now, suspense.
Obviously, you've had your fair share, and I have too, about like Marvel fans and stuff like that, how like rabid they could be. Just brands in general. Even when it comes to like physical media, people will praise the Criterion collection or like a boutique brands like that out the ass just because of that name. It could be a totally like shit release, like an overpriced release with like nothing to it, but they're like, oh, but it's a Criterion, so I gotta have it. I find that shit so cringe, and that's like I said, that's why I've been outcasted from from a lot of the community. The community doesn't accept me because like I just call it out like how it is. I'm just like, bro, like really, like that's what we're doing now. That's what's hot in the streets. Just like brand loyalty, like blind brand loyalty. That's the thing that sets me apart from a lot of people is that I was one of the first people to call out the MCU on like their boring like copy paste, and I used to get so much shit for it. Like people would be hitting me up in the DMs or comments like, "Oh, you're just a hater," and blah, you don't know anything. And I'm like, bro, like just because I have a different opinion doesn't mean I hate stuff. I can just like even when it comes to DC, people be like, "Oh, you're just a DC fanboy," and I'm like, "No, I can say when a DC movie sucks too." I have zero brand loyalty to anything.
I think with brand loyalty, I follow. I don't know. I've been several times where I would just like something or follow something just because. Like, I guess with the Snyderverse or Zack Snyder in general, like I've been fan of his for like ever since BVS. When BVS and Man of Steel, I'm kind of like, oh, this is the fucking guy. So I was in love with everything he did. So that's where my biggest loyalty was. And even when I started doing the movie and comic book stuff on YouTube 2 years ago, I was very much more invested in DC. So I guess I did have a lot of brand loyalty just because it was Zack Snyder or DC. So I don't know. Now I kind of fallen out of it and it's like taking a step back and I can look at things more, I guess, objectively now, at least a little bit more. But I still lean more towards DC characters. I like DC's characters more. That's why I like DC more, So
yeah. I mean, pretty much when it comes to like the comic book stuff, like DC, I do like the DC characters more. So I guess there's a bit of that. And then like when it comes to Marvel, like I said, when we're talking about Spider-Man, I'll watch anything with Spider-Man because like that's where my loyalty lies is in Spider-Man as well as the X-Men. But I will say, if an X-Men movie comes out and it sucks ass, I'm gonna be like, yeah, this shit sucks.
Yeah, the exit. Yeah, I've been trying to. I don't know. I feel like I've been trying to do that more recently, where it's like take a step back. I think I got better at it. Take a step back and actually look at it and be like, take my loyalty and my bias aside and be like, how actually good is it or how bad is it? And I don't think I ever got to the point where it completely like overtook everything where I liked it just because. Like I've seen people like go crazy over like the She-Hulk show and stuff. Like I see people going crazy on it and like, the clips, and I tried watching the first like couple episodes. Even then I'm kind of like I don't get the appeal. Like I'm sorry. So like I guess in that sense where it is actually like blind praising, like I don't think I ever got that bad.
Yeah.
But like when it comes to that, it is pretty cringe.
the only other the other titles that I can think of too is like the Rings of Power. Like people were praising that thing out the ass before it even came out. And I'm just like, okay.
That was weird, yeah.
And I was like, all right. And then I watched it. I mean, I only watched like the first 3 episodes. I still haven't finished it. But my love for the franchise and like Lord of the Rings is gonna like compel me to finish it. But I just don't have time right now. So, but I did watch the first 3 episodes. I didn't hate it, but I also there's nothing like after each episode. I don't know if I mentioned it to you or to somebody else that I was talking to, but no, I mentioned it to somebody else that was also watching at the same time I was. Is that there was no at the end of every episode, there has to be something that hooks you into wanting to watch the next episode. Those first 3 episodes I watched, I was like, okay, like what is keeping me from just being like, I don't want to watch this anymore? Nothing happens. I was like, bro, nothing is happening. I've watched like 3 hours of this already. Nothing is happening. Like, what is the main plot? Who are the villains? Who are the characters I'm supposed to be rooting for besides like Galadriel? Like, I don't know. Like, there's just so much going on, but I'm just like, I don't give a shit about any of these people. You could not like something. Like, I made jokes about the black elf in on Instagram and stuff like that. Because they're like, I saw a lot of people, they were just like going hard for like, there are no black elves. And I'm just like, bro, this is fantasy. So you can believe in, like wizards and elves and tiny hobbits and shit, but like an elf of color, you're like, no. It's like, what? So like with that, I made fun of it too. Like the only thing I found troubling with the black elf was his fucking dope ass fade. Like this dude's fade is like this dude's fade is fire. Like his it's flames, bro. I'm telling you. And I'm like, where did he find a barber in Middle Earth that could shape him up like that? Like that shit is clean. Like so that see like stuff like that. Black elves don't suspend my belief. My belief is suspended when I see a dude in Middle Earth with a dope ass fade. Like I'm just like, what? and
I think also I think issue when they try to introduce, because like I did see people say they were upset about like the black elf and all the other race changes. It's like House of the Dragon showed you can change the race of the character as long as they're actually good characters. People will get behind it. Because House of the Dragon, they changed so many characters.
Yeah, there's like black Targaryens and stuff.
Yeah, there's Black Targaryens, which by lore really shouldn't make any sense, but they come up with a good explanation in the show for why it makes sense. That makes sense, Where it's like, oh, it's just his house, and so that's why it makes sense. Where and it's like Game of Thrones actually been pretty consistent with that, so it's like it's pretty impressive. But like they came up with really good reasons, and the character is really good. So people can look past this stuff if it actually is a good character. Like effort,
that's pretty much the basis of it. Is there have been, I mean, I did that video about like race bending. Go watch that, everybody, if you haven't seen it. Where I brought up a ton of examples of like race bending that no one had issues with. And that's because the character was so cool or because of the actor. And that's where the brand loyalty comes in. If you see me, I love Denzel, man. Denzel could play fucking George Washington. And I'm like, yeah, that's George Washington. You know what I mean? Like, and that like with the Equalizer series. The Equalizer series is based off of a British white dude. You know what I mean? He played Macbeth recently, and I really liked it. A lot of people didn't like it, but I was like, bro, I liked it. I'm kind of biased against Macbeth, and Macbeth is like probably like the only like Shakespearean work that I actually like. So when it comes to Macbeth, I'm already gonna love it. And then they put Denzel as Macbeth, so I'm like, boom, I'm in. Like you don't even gotta tell me twice. That's where like the brand loyalty comes in when it even comes to actors and directing and stuff like that. So like you were saying, as long as the characters are good, and sometimes too, if you put in like a really cool person that everyone likes, they don't give a shit what color the person is. I mean, like I said, Sam Jackson, like Nick Fury is white in the comics.
But no one cares because it's Samuel Jackson and he's great.
It's like Samuel Jackson. All right, cool. Like I said, Denzel could play Abe Lincoln, and I'd be like, yep, give this man an Oscar.
There he is. I know with Rings of Power too. Like I like when it comes to brand loyalty, I feel like there are people who like the show who overly praise it just because there are people who don't like the show. That makes sense. Because like when I made my couple videos about why I wasn't excited for Rings of Power, and then my actual thoughts on the first couple episodes, when I did that, it's just there were a lot of people just saying, "Oh, you just don't like YUGIOH because she's a woman." I'm like, you ignored everything I just said, but okay. Cool. And so it's one of the situations where it's like remember when I did when I talked about the Snyder Cut recently? I said, "Oh, if I was going to cut some scenes down, I would cut these scenes out." And that dude was kind of like implying I was a racist.
Oh yeah, you sent me the.
That was so funny.
You sent me the comments.
Yeah, that was so funny, and like I told him, just you ignored everything I just said, and you just taken and you're twisting a narrative. It's like I gave you reasons. It's like it's just if you want to, if that's the reason you believe, then I go off. Go off. Do your thing. But with Rings of Power, like it's the same thing where if the characters were written well, it's like I think it could have worked, but the route they took was just also like the way they structured the show and the route they took with the story is just I think it was doomed to fail anyway. Just because like you bought the rights to Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit to not tell the story of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. You tell an era that you don't have any actual rights in, and like actually own the rights for it. So it's a bizarre scenario.
It goes back to what we were talking about in Halloween, where they have all these really cool ideas that they want, but they would never have gotten that made or story told otherwise unless they put it onto that. So that's
exactly
probably most likely what happens. Like, oh hey, we want to do this. It's like that sounds a lot like the Lord of the Rings, my guy, and they'll be like, all right, yeah, let's do that.
We'll just do Lord of the Rings then. We'll just tell the story we want to tell, It's like, and I hate when people bring up the Peter Jackson films. They're like, oh, they changed a lot of things too. And it's like, yeah, and there was a lot of doubt back then, but that was 20 years ago. And there's still people, a friend of mine, she loves Lord of the Rings. just several things she doesn't like in the movies, like whole sections that she thinks are like done really bad because she loves the books more than the movies. So there are still people who like, but still objectively, Lord of the Rings is a very well made series of movies, you know?
If you if you can like separate the adaptation from like the film and stuff, a lot of stuff's really good and then a lot of stuff's really bad. I mean, like, here's an example of kind of going back to Marvel movies. I think Civil War is a very entertaining movie on its own, but compared to the adaptation of work that it's based on, it is complete fucking garbage. Like, it is like the worst adaptation I've ever seen of anything. Like, but if I separate the two, and that's why a lot of people got mad at me. Like, I got into huge arguments with people in comments and stuff about like Civil War because I was like, this looks like ass. And they're like, oh, blah, 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 and saying this. And I'm just like, bro, like, have you ever read the Civil War comics? Like, if you read the comics, like, this is complete garbage. But if I watch it as just as a movie and not as an adaptation, it's entertaining.
It's not, dude. Yeah, it's like, I don't like Civil War either way, personally. Like, that's when I think the MCU got incredibly jokey. That's when the movie started looking really bad, like CGI wise, on some scenes that had that weird. That's when they put the gray filter on. So to me, that's when I started really like falling out of the MCU. And I'm kind of like, wait, it's like this isn't. Age of Ultron was like the catalyst, I think.
Yeah.
Then I saw Ant-Man later that year. I'm kind of like, this is okay. Then I saw Civil War. I'm kind of like, I'm like, this isn't that good. You know? That's why I like Batman vs Superman. It's like it really was like completely different, which is why I loved it so much. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a nice different take. It's completely different from the MCU. Like that's why I liked it so much. I'm like, it's they want to do their own thing, not just copy them. But we saw how that turned out.